Hello and welcome to the Rask Network. What you're about to hear and see is limited to general financial information only. Please be sure to speak to your financial planner or refer to our financial services guide available at rask.com.au/FSG before acting on the information. Chris Bates, welcome to this episode of the Australian Property Podcast.
Owen, great to chat always, mate. How's life? How you been?
Good, mate. Good. Yeah, it's always busy when you run your own business, as I'm sure you can appreciate right now. For those of you that don't follow Chris on LinkedIn or follow Blusk or any of those things online, there's been some really, really big news out over the past week about Chris and a new name of a business, which is Flint Group. So in this episode, we're going to talk to Chris. So I'm just going to ask Chris some questions about basically what's just transpired with his business, his new business partner, and how it's all come together, what it means for the industry. Because Chris, I've seen your mug now on the cover of some magazines by the looks of it. Mate, can you just take us through the last few months and what you've been working on?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said at the start, right? When you are running your own business, it's, you can take things in lots of different directions, and coming up to 10 years in a few months' time. So 10 years is a long time, right? A lot happens in work and outside of work. And, we've been considering, and I've pivoted lots over the years. I've changed, actually rebranded multiple times. And as the business is sort of, found more and more desire to specialize in certain pockets, or, the business has changed in terms of how we're working and who we're working with. And so I guess a conversation that started 5 years ago, in fairness, was with another broker within the industry. I've got lots of friends that, have been doing things in the broking world that I respected, and I'd reach out. I've always been one to say, hey, and I love what you're doing. Hey, let's grab a coffee. And, a guy called Christian Stevens, who's quite well known in the broking world. We became mates, I guess. We said, what are you doing? I'm doing this. We were kind of running partners, and, and we're always sort of open source mentality, right? Like open book. I'm not worried about competition, but if that's a great idea, I might incorporate that, and he would share what he's doing and I'd incorporate that. And it wasn't just with Christian. I was doing this with lots of different brokers, but him and I, we just stayed in contact a lot, and we ended up becoming good friends. And, the conversation came that, he was leaving Shaw Financial, which is arguably one of the biggest brokerages in the country right now. He was their top broker, and he had a desire to sort of do his own thing. And his decision was, well, do I start my own thing, start from scratch, bring my team across and build my own brand, or do I partner with Chris and his team? And, rather than running partners, do we do this as business partners? And that conversation was a slow one. We didn't rush into it. I had a business coach who was done a lot of work in this space, and we went through a full process. It took, 6 to 12 months to start the conversation. And then once we agreed to do it, it still took us 3 to 6 months to start to build it. And we're still building lots of things now, the amount of work that we've had to do on lots of different areas. The reason we did it was ultimately, we're very similar in many ways. We're very big picture, optimistic, positive people that are, see and playing the long game in broking. We're both very similar age, and we see ourselves doing this for a long time, and we want to help more and more people. But ultimately, combined, we thought we were better. And, because we had that person to bounce ideas off, and I'll calm him down and he'll calm me down at certain times and say, no, that's probably not the right move. And we've also got that anchor in the team, which is Ben and John, who run the back end of the business. So Blusk is now called Flint, or flintgroup.au. And it's still business as usual. We've probably got more and more expertise in the team than we ever have now, because not only is Christian joining, but a number of his team members are joining. A number of other people who were not part of his business or my business are joining as well, because they want to be part of this. Our team's probably going to be over 50 by July 1. It's probably 40 plus now already. And and the approach we're going is, most brokers have gone on this silo model, right? So you go to a business, you speak to a broker, and they try to hold your hand across the whole loan process, which can be good. But it's also challenging, because that broker's switching their hat like constantly. One minute I'm looking at loan docs, one minute I'm trying to find new customers, one time I'm working with an existing customer on repricing. And the broker, just the hours in the day just get eaten up by all that well, we don't think it's very productive. And we also think you can be better at certain parts of the process due to your strengths and weaknesses as an individual. And some brokers might be great at the strategy, but they're not great at finding customers or, paperwork or their attention to detail. And so what we've done is really break down that process. And we're actually going way further with this merge, where we're investing in tech to power parts that humans maybe had to do before. But the advice, we're splitting into lots of different niches. So, I mean, where I really specialize is that sort of family market, the home buying market, the helping people think through their property decisions. That's what I absolutely love doing. Christian's had a lot in commercial. He's had a lot of first home buyers, and some of the other guys in digital partnerships and real estate, and some in the older demographic. And so we're going to have, and different professions. We've got medico specialists to other industries and private wealth and things like that. So we're just going to have a team that actually, I'm not the right person for this. This person could be better off with Sal because it's ultra high net worth and he's had been a private banker for 14 years. And so that's our model. It's not we're all competing, a boiler room, it's 20 brokers trying to write lots of business. No. We're staying in our lane and we're really doubling down on that problem because that's what we're really passionate about and that's what we care about.
So you've gone from, you and I've spoken obviously for years. You obviously co-host the Australian Property Podcast. Over the years, we've done episodes where we talked about you growing the Blusk business and building that up and being a financial advisor for a time and then transitioning across. I guess the question is, now you've kind of risen, like you were voted the number one broker last year. It's interesting because as far as I'm aware, there's two big industry awards. You won one and then Christian won the other one last year. So this is kind of like the two top dogs saying, well, let's just work together and just be even better again and kind of lead the industry. But I guess where I'm going with this question is, like, now that, because you've already achieved so much, the two of you, do you think there's like change coming for how people deal with mortgage brokers or how the industry is made up? Because it seems like this is like a kind of like a force and it's kind of leading the charge to a certain future, if that makes sense.
Oh, we absolutely do see it's changing in two ways. We think that it's becoming more of a team rather than an individual sport. We absolutely are going to, when a client works with us, they work with a whole group of people. And sometimes we're trying to work on how do we get the communication better rather than, between each individual. Because if you sell all your information to one person, they know it, right? As long as they don't forget it.
Yeah.
But if you have a team, then how does that information transfer person to person seamlessly? We're trying to use as much tech as we can to do that. But if we can get over that and, the customer's getting a nicer experience because they're dealing with someone who just is on that, right? They know how to manage that part of the process better than someone who does it, less times. And so we think that's how it's changing. But we also think technology. We absolutely aren't afraid of it. We actually are excited by it. We are speaking to anyone who's doing anything in mortgage technology or customer experience tech. And we think that's just going to make our advice better, our strategies better. The way that you get a mortgage is going to be better. And there are going to be like digital loan products that you might not even need to speak to someone. You can, if you are a vanilla situation, and more things probably will get vanilla because their policies will get broader. And so we want to be at the forefront of that. And giving clients a really amazing digital experience. And not just now, but ongoing. There's been a lot of mortgage tech that's come in around existing clients and reducing and optimizing their rate and reducing any loyalty tax to the banks. And so they're two things. Our roles, I mean, when you're sort of the E-Myth, isn't it, right? That book, when you love what you do, you can't imagine doing anything else. So when I was a financial advisor, I absolutely love being an advisor. I still used to get the biggest kick from when a client came to me and the initial meeting was they were confused, they were concerned, they were worried, they're very nervous exposing their financial situation, calming them down, feeling like making them feel in a safe space, getting to know about all their beliefs and their worries and their goals, and and then them coming out the other side with a bit of an idea of actually, what, things aren't that bad. Actually, what, we can take ownership of our financial future. That was, and they walk out and that, shake of the hands and that was what drove me, right? And it still does. That drives our advice. And we absolutely don't want to grow for the sake of quality. That's without question. If I start to see that our values get compromised, it's not worth it. But ultimately, I did fall in love with becoming a bit of building a team. We had a team day yesterday. There was about 15, 20 there. And we did photos. We went for lunch. It was a very authentic, genuine conversation. Everyone knows about each other, their family and their kids, and genuinely care about each other. Then we went into a Sydney trapeze, and we all did some things that are out of our comfort zone. And that's what's driving probably Christian and I now, is we want to become leaders and mentors for that everyone in our business, together with driving great advice. And so I do think that's just naturally. You're right about the awards. It's funny though, because when there's usually 8 to 10 finalists in those things, and they put you all up on the screen, and the winner of this award is Chris, and then it went Christian, not Chris, that the last awards. I won it at one national, he won it the other one, and I kind of half stood up, and then I had to sit back down because it went Christian, not Chris. So that was a funny moment. And he came over because he was only a couple of tables away, and shook my hand, and so that was a nice moment. That no one knew what was going on behind the scenes, but obviously we did.
Yeah, right. That's good. I guess. A title of a recent article was $1 billion brokers. How big, for people that because I know mortgage broking firms measure like the loan size as a sense for people to figure out how much money is going through and how much they're processing in terms of servicing customers and et cetera, et cetera. How big do you think? How big were the businesses, and how big do you think they can get?
Look, I think, it's interesting. I think we, as individuals, I don't think we would have been thinking as big as we are as a collective. It's the sort of many hands make light work. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go to, further, go together, right? That African proverb. I'm not great at quoting quotes. I never say the right thing, but,
I think that works.
Ultimately, so we have written probably close to 3 billion, if not more together. How many clients is that? Well, depends on your average. Our averages are higher than the most brokers, and so you'd probably be million plus. But most brokers are probably in that 700,000-800,000, which is the Australian public sort of. But even smaller than that, to be honest, because loan averages have gone up dramatically in the last few years, and so that's another reason why there's not that many brokers that have written more than $1 billion. And when you look at us, both of us have gone well over that, and we're writing numbers that number's snowballing, right? Like I think I wrote 6 to 9 million in my first year as a broker. Like it was,
right.
everyone starts somewhere, right? And so I think, so that I mean, how big we can get. The interesting thing is, the broking industry probably does about $400 to $500 billion of loans a year. It might be a little bit less than that. It does vary quite a lot. So that's refinances. And new purchases, right? So, and that's sort of the amount of, even though it's a $2.4 trillion home loan market now, that's how many loans there are out there, I think, pretty sure. But $300 to $500 billion swaps hands every year. And so you'd think in an industry where it's swap, $300, $400, $500 billion of loans, you'd see these big companies, doing lots of loans. Well, there's not many big brokerages. A big brokerage is someone who writes about $2 billion a year. There's only not even that many that do that, might be under 5. There's lots in that. So there's probably about 20 or 30 or something that write about $1 billion a year. So we're going to be writing probably close to 2 billion in our first year, maybe 1.5 to 2. Depends on what happens with the markets as well, and the amount of people that transact. Wow. But that's pretty crazy that we're already up there. And Lendy, read some numbers last week. I think they did 7.5 billion, but that's a bit different. They had a lot of private equity money, and they, people spend a lot of money on tech and a lot of money on advertising. And then you've got like the big franchises, the Aussies, Mortgage Choices, Loan Markets, but they're like really thousands of different smaller businesses that add up to a big number, but it's not one business writing that. And why hasn't there been these big businesses? I think one is that it's been really hard to build them because a lot of it was a local broker model that was a lot of expensive outlay in staff, and your clients were stuck to your local area. COVID smashed that. Getting support internationally is easier, and there's a lot of big ways to do that. But B, clients will work with you anywhere in the world. And also the ability to scale with tech. You can actually do more with less. And so I think there's this combination of worlds that are colliding at now, where we think if you set up a business the right way, then you could write much bigger numbers.
For sure.
And so the answer, how big we're going to get, we're trying to get to 10 bill. Um, and that seems a long way away, but hey, who's to say it's not possible, right? If we set up things the right way.
Not if you're already doing what you're already doing.
Mm.
So then I'd imagine like a lot of, because it's obviously made pretty big news. I'd imagine a lot of other brokers would come to you and ask what you're doing and try to be part of it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I think this is a bit of a gap in the industry that it's obvious when you sort of see it now, like we can see it, and we thought it would be the case, but ultimately, people don't really want to start their own business. Right? I remember when I started the business, it's scary, it's risky, it's harder because you've got to start your own brand. You've got so many things to think about. They just want to be in a safe home where they can still build a business within a business, build an asset, not have to worry about all those other things, and then just really focus on growing, because the survivorship rate of any business is really hard. It's even harder, I think, in this world where before people would always work with their mate or their friend or the local broker. I think now people seek out trusted advisors. And so they actually go and figure out who is the best person for this, Google, research, articles. Oh, actually, I'll just go reach out to them. And so it's actually, I feel like it's harder now to start a new business. It's cheap, absolutely, but it's really hard to find clients. And so there's this gap in the market, I think, for people who do want to grow their brokerages. It's like, I said I wrote 6 or 9 million in the first year. It was a time where I was like 30, 40 mil. They were tough days. And so we want to find the brokers that have really love the industry, love what they do, very good at what they do, want to do this long term, and have a bit of a unique skill set, in terms of their network and where they love working. Ideally, a niche where we're not really covering. So a part of the market, whether it's regional, whether it's a type of industry, whether it's a part of the market or a service part of the market, first-time buyers or foreign expat. And we want to sort of say, well, that's your lane. Let's just go and own it. We think that there's a power in owning a part of the market, not trying to be a broker to everyone. And if they want to come and join us on that journey, we'd absolutely. And we launched literally yesterday, and there's probably 50 different brokers have reached out. And it's not to say all of them are going to join, and that's probably absolutely won't be the case. But we do think there's a market where people want to be part of something, and we'd absolutely love for them to join in the fun.
It's really interesting because I've been speaking to a lot of freelancers or solopreneurs the last few weeks, and a lot of them do say that. I see that with mortgage brokers, that they're often just flying by themselves. They might cover in my suburb, they might cover my suburb and get referrals from like 3 or 4 real estate agents in the local community, but they still just operate by themselves. They respond to emails at all hours. They're doing all that sort of stuff, and they're kind of chasing paperwork. But like the freelancers and the solopreneurs that I've been speaking to, a lot of them are like in a situation where it's been great, trying to do that run your own race, but they still need that connection, and they don't want to do everything all the time. Like you said, kind of de-risks a lot of their business to have other people in specialized seats like back office and that sort of stuff. So it's I'm actually really interested. When I first heard that what you were doing, obviously, I was a bit surprised because I was like, Blusk is going so well. But like as I've learned more about it over the last few weeks, things have started to kind of settle down. I've kind of seen how this could actually cast a much, much bigger, like wider net for you and Christian and the band and the team, the entire team, and help you service more people. And it's interesting what you said about how people don't always shop local anymore. And I think that's really important to understand. Like I think I don't know the exact number, but it would have to be about 250 people have started through that funnel between Rask and Blusk, now Flint Group. And that's because I imagine a lot of people that listen to this, if they know that you got voted number 1, Christian got voted number 1, they hear you on the podcast every week, you're out here doing the thing, talking about strategy. It's not hard to then be like, well, I don't need to be in Sydney with Chris. I can be in Melbourne and work with him. Like, why wouldn't I do that? But not everyone can, has that luxury, I guess, if you're a broker or whatever.
Yeah, like Pete, for example, buyers agents are really hard to scale nationally. Hence why we don't actually work with one buyers agency. There are buyers agencies that will say I can buy anywhere in the country or overseas, or maybe another planet. But those buyers agencies are not the buyers agencies that you should work with. So it's a hard business to scale. You need that local knowledge. You need the experience with agents. The relationship. It takes time. And, friends who run buyers agencies, they constantly say, I can't find great buyers agents because it takes years to train. And it's hard to sort of outsource the process a little bit because you've got to be on the ground and going to opens. When I talk about the property market, real estate agents are the same. Surveyors and lawyers, that's definitely more state-based. But buyers agents can work, mortgage brokers can work nationally. And ultimately, property fundamentals do apply across the country. Now, not every broker is going to have experience in lots of different because they might be a local broker. But while we would definitely know the East Coast really well because we've just had clients buying across up and down it, less so much in probably Adelaide and Perth. But, that's still been growing. You still get learnings. And, to be honest, we lean on buyers agents in those cities anyway, right? Ultimately, we don't have to be the city experts. We just understand the fundamentals and then refer on to multiple buyers agents who know the nuts and bolts of, what people are, the locals want. Because I've never lived in Brisbane. I've lived in Melbourne, for 3 years and gone back there a lot. My dad still lives there. So I've, I was born there and, I've been going back all my 20s and, even at least once or twice a year now.
Yeah, come back.
I know, it's a good city, just not for 6 months a year. But I do like the warmth. But yeah, I mean there's a lot going on here with this decision. It wasn't, last thing you want to do is blow up a ship that you've stressed about and you've built and it's going well, and you've got a team, but also there's a power in scale. I can sort of now spend more and more time doing the things I absolutely love because I haven't got to worry about these other things because maybe Christian's doing that or maybe Ben's doing that or maybe John or Craig or Alex and we can sort of cut up our business and focus on, and that the going on holiday thing is a big thing. That's one of the issues with, people starting out and growing teams is that it all falls on them. Brokerage is very stressful. It's emotional. Biggest transaction of people's lives. Absolutely. They're losing all their savings to buy into this property. They've maybe never gone through the process before. They've heard all these horror stories and people get in their ears and scare them. And then, and then things happen. Settlements get delayed. Loan docs get lost. Well, that doesn't happen as much anymore, but because all needs time. But issues happen and that you need that person there. And I remember there was times when we were on holidays in Africa and India and I was saying to my partner, now wife, sorry, I've got to get on this. And it needs to be sorted now. I need to call the bank at 9 a.m. I know that's 2 a.m. here, but I need to do it because I just didn't have the team. And that's one of the things with brokerages and building a team is really hard. It's like, who do you hire first? What do you pay them? How are they going to grow? Like, what do you do next? What happens if they leave? What happens if they start their own? It's a real, I guess what's the analogy there? It's like a minefield of what you get wrong and it can slow you down because there's a training and we're trying to take over that because, hey, we're resourcing that. We're growing that dramatically. So you can focus on the thing you like doing is finding customers and educating them.
No, I like it. Well, now we can officially update all the website for people that have been wondering when will the website get updated. It's currently still looking like a Blusk landing page on our site. But if you want to learn more, all of that's going to be updated. You can head to flintgroup.au. There will be a link in the show notes for anyone that wants to check out the website. The website is coming in March, but mate, it's a huge decision for you as a business owner. I can imagine. I'll be honest with you. Like growing Rask over these years, I've had these types of things come across my desk or opportunities in times gone by, and I know how hard it is to potentially introduce new blood and new culture into the system and go in a different way or expand. And I know it's not always easy to make that decision. So congrats to both you and Christian. And I think the Rask community would be much better for having you guys combined and the relationship there. And hopefully this year you can both walk up on stage and claim the award of number one broker. And they can just say Christian or Chris. And both of you can walk up and claim it, mate. It's exciting times ahead. So, mate, always a pleasure. Appreciate your time and all the best with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, the website's coming up in March. Blusk is probably the brand, and the website's going to stick around for maybe another month or so while we transition. The type form in the show notes is absolutely still the best way to get in contact, even though it's on Blusk. But behind that now, there's a whole other team of expertise. Sal started on Monday. He was a private banker for 14 years. He was heading up a big part of another brokerage. He's my private banker personally, 5-6 years ago. And he is a absolute encyclopedia on private wealth. And so, not everyone qualifies for that. Usually it's 500 incomes plus, but, that knowledge in-house is, game changing for us and those clients that are, tick those boxes. And so that's just one example. I know that probably doesn't appeal to most people listening to this because it is only 0.1% of the public, but that's just an insight of what we're trying to achieve here. So cool, thanks so much for this chat, Owen. Obviously, I'm not going anywhere. This is going to be continued. We just did a 2 cents Pete coming out on Sundays. So
plenty more to come. Plenty more to come. Stay tuned. Australian Property Podcast is just going to get bigger and bigger. Hopefully, we'll have Christian on the show soon. And as always, mate, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Owen.